Well, for a game that at one point looked like the most boring game of the season and ended with some fireworks, the Philadelphia Flyers clutched out a win, sending Montreal to a better position in the Tankathon. Plus, we got a goal from Gallagher and Gallagher. I'll be breaking down this whole game on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's game reaction edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse. We're doing a flip from yesterday's game reaction. Unfortunately, I had to record a little later today for this game reaction. I was out, so I couldn't get the video out quite on time, and it was a bit too late for Jesse, so apologies to him, and sorry for back-to-back solo uploads, but I know you guys will stick around to watch this anyway. And remember to hit subscribe. I'm just going to do a quick reminder, as always. So, that game was interesting. And interesting is maybe, I don't know. There was a lot of pretense before this game. Is interesting the right word? I'd say so. I mean, Cayden Primeau gets called up from Laval, kind of surprisingly, to play this game for Philadelphia. And he was actually sent right back down immediately after this game. So, Cayden Primeau called up. Samuel Montembeault was the backup tonight. Primeau does an amazing job. Stops 24 of the 26 shots that he faced. And got second star of the game, and immediately got sent back down to Laval. I'll be talking about what I thought of him in a bit, but the most important thing tonight was that Sean Farrell made his NHL debut for the Montreal Canadiens, and thanks to a last-minute, maybe sort of last-minute scratch from Kirby Dach, who's out with an upper body injury. You can only assume it's related to that fall and hit to the head that he took in the Habs' last game against Buffalo. I mean, that looked pretty bad. They took him out of the game for concussion protocol. Hope he's okay. Hope it's not a concussion. But anyway, we'll see. But with Kirby Dach out of the lineup, Sean Farrell, who's originally slotted in to play between Alex Belzile, well, with Alex Belzile and Michael Pezzetta, I guess, with Belzile at center, got a bump up. He played the Kirby Dach role. He was on the wing with Jonathan Drouin at center, with Denis Gurianov on the other side. So Farrell really getting good line mates, getting a chance to prove himself right away, and that's exactly what myself and Jesse were calling for when we heard that he was going to get called up. Now, ideally, we wanted them to play with Dach, but Drouin is a great playmaker, and Gurianov, who's a sniper who could really benefit off of Sean Farrell's playmaking, that could maybe be good. But this game, early on in the first, you're trying to look for some positives, look here and there for some fun things, and honestly, guys, just to be fully transparent, I write a lot of the notes on my phone, right? I mean, that's not shocking or anything, but throughout the first two periods of this game, I usually have like 6 or 7 like little jot notes that I keep per period, just as talking points. Tonight, I think through about halfway in the third, I had 6 or 7 total. There was almost nothing to talk about. Now, to be fair, I was doing other things while watching the game, and there were some exciting moments, some scrambles. Like there was a Michael Pezzetta break where he almost scored exactly like he did in the shootout off the post. Scrambles in front of Felix Sandstrom, a guy who got his second career NHL win tonight versus Montreal. So there were some exciting things, but in general, like, other than the goals, which I'll get into in a second, there was nothing. Philadelphia, once again, when playing Montreal, just looked like they couldn't get anything going. Montreal was dominating the shots early, and Philadelphia just looked like they had very, very little response. But that's offensively. Philadelphia's defense was also kind of keeping Montreal to the outside, and neither team could generate any offense. I mean, Primeau had to make a couple of sharp saves. Farrell looked okay in the first period. I mean, nothing super spectacular, but he looked like he kind of belonged in the first. And Gallagher and Evans, that's one thing I wanted to mention too. Gallagher and Evans, the last few games, have had some crazy chemistry. And we'll get into Galley in a minute as well. But those two, I think there's some potential for next year because we know Evans is going nowhere. We know Galley is going nowhere, at least for the time being. So keeping those two together could definitely give the team a boost in some chemistry. But the second period is where we saw, until the last, 5 minutes, by far the most action in the second period. And the Flyers were the first ones to strike. The Flyers got a power play, and they made no mistake. Honestly, I don't really remember too many of the details of the goal, except for that they scored, and it was Morgan Frost on the power play. He had a really good game tonight, Morgan Frost, played very well for the Flyers. Cayden Primeau, not much he could have done on that goal. But hey, the Flyers got out to a 1-0 lead, and I'm not going to lie, when I'm watching that game, it's one of those games where you're like, you know, you want Montreal to lose because of the implications, and actually I'll get into that right now, because of the implication, right? Montreal and Philadelphia are separated by 2 points in the NHL standings. Philadelphia, coming into this game, was 2 points ahead of Montreal. And, naturally, if Montreal won this game, and since they have the tiebreaker over Philadelphia, they would vault over Philadelphia in the standings and be in position for the 6th draft pick instead of the 5th. So a lot of people were saying, just lose this game. Just have a good game, have a fun game, and hope Montreal loses. So as a fan, I'm like, I don't know, because I don't like Philadelphia. I don't like really the way they play. John Tortorella is a fun coach, but that team, just when I watch them, it's not exciting. I kind of just wanted Montreal to beat him up again, because last time Montreal played him, I remember doing the recap for that video and thinking that Philadelphia looked like a minor league team. But I wanted Montreal to kind of just smoke them, and if they didn't, yeah, maybe a close loss was fine. But after that 1-0 lead from Philadelphia, who was the one to score but Brendan Gallagher? Gallagher's 3 goals in his last 3 games. This guy is on fire. The chemistry with that line, him and Evans, and he scored on that possession. He had a post earlier in the game, and he was creating scrambles in front of the net. Evans was creating good chances. Those guys got something going. So, again, something to monitor going into next year, because Gallagher, I'm seeing some people say maybe he's not done. Maybe Brendan Gallagher still has some stuff left in the tank, because, honestly, his shot hasn't looked this hard, this accurate in a while. When this guy's getting the opportunities in the slot last year, and even a couple years ago, they were these little weak shots that kind of didn't get off the ice and maybe tried to go 5-hole. Even that big goal he scored against the Leafs in the playoffs, it was a 5-hole goal on Jack Campbell where he didn't have a ton on it. But his shots now, he's ringing the iron constantly, posting in kind of shots. He's finding his stride, maybe. There's only 10 games left in the season, and this could very well just be a small hot streak. I'm not going to get anyone's hopes up, obviously, but it's cool to see that he's doing it again. Some vintage Gallagher finally putting some pucks in the back of the net, which is awesome to see. And then throughout the rest of the second period, honestly, of course, we had that Pizzetta post in the second period as well. But the Habs were kind of rolling over Philly, not necessarily in the offensive zone, but they were just not letting Philly do anything. Philly was trying to get into the Habs zone, and they just couldn't. There was no zone entries, no nothing. The announcers were like, holy crap, what is going on? There's nothing happening. So let's move into the third period. And the Habs had a lot of the offensive momentum early, but Philly started clawing back. The Habs had a big shot lead. It was a 7 or 8 shot lead for a while, until in the third period, Philly crawled back and made it almost even in shots. But one thing I wanted to note is that the defense this game, they really seem to be helping Cayden Primeau, because when we've seen Cayden Primeau before, he's been kind of left hung out to dry, and I think his save percentage and his win-loss record is not indicative of how well he performed. I'm not saying he's been a good NHL goalie. He has not been. He has really not been a good NHL goalie, but his defense hasn't done him any favors, and tonight I think they helped him out a bit. While he still looked very chaotic in net, he didn't really seem to have control of the game a lot of the time. Some big rebounds. Sometimes I was just looking at his 5-hole was wide open, almost got scored on twice 5-hole, but somehow got a lucky bounce and it stayed out. I think Primeau's awesome. I still don't see him as an NHL goalie yet based on this performance tonight, but hey, he held his ground, made 24 of 26 saves, so hats off to him. He had a decent game. But then in that third period, Sean Farrell again. I wanted to look at him, but every time he was on the ice, just putting it out there, he looked like he was getting tossed around. I think his skill is definitely there. His work ethic for sure is there. You saw him forechecking, doing everything he could, leaving everything on the ice every shift he had. The problem is, every time he went for a puck battle, it felt like he was getting thrown by a guy not that much bigger than him. So that's one thing Farrell's going to have to learn to fix. Maybe not to just, be a big body or anything, but trying to use his body a little better, use his size to his advantage. You don't see Gallagher going down in a heap like that, not even Caufield. So that's just something that he needs to adjust for the NHL game. But without further ado, let's just get into this end of this third period. So the end of the third period, I think there was 10 minutes of game time without even an ad break, and then once 5 minutes crossed in the third period, chaos started to unfold. There were chances for Montreal, chances for Philadelphia, but with about 2 minutes left, it culminated in a 2-on-1 for Philly where Morgan Frost does a little toe drag. Joel Edmundson can't quite get back and contest it in time. Frost snipes it glove side on Cayden Primeau. And then just after that, the Habs get an offensive zone face-off. They pull the goalie. Mike Matheson skates back and just inexplicably coughs it up to Owen Tippett, who just puts in the easiest empty net goal ever, basically handed the puck on a silver platter. It was passed right to him, and everything, all hope was lost. There was only 40 seconds left. But then Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Gallagher, one of our favorite players, scores his 13th of the season. I think that jumped him into 8th this season in rookie goal scoring, or at least into solo possession of 9th. This guy has been on fire as of late. Of course, the hat trick just the other day in one period against Columbus. He scores with 20 seconds left and the Habs have a breath of life. So it made the final few minutes of this game exciting. It felt like you could zone out for most of this game, but the final 5 minutes, right until the end, the Habs even had another chance after that Harvey-Pinard goal. They couldn't quite pull it out in the end, but a 3-2 loss to Philadelphia with an exciting final 5 minutes, hey, I guess you can't really complain, and it really helps Team Tank, because that solidifies Montreal's position in 5th last. I don't think they're going to go any lower, and unless they go on a hot streak, I don't really see them going much higher, so this game definitely had huge implications for that. Seems like the 5th overall pick is where Montreal's heading into this draft, but hey, it's possible they move up. Of course, the odds of them getting a higher pick, I think it's 6.5% of the number 1 pick, so very possible Montreal moves up. If not, top 5 pick, pretty perfect after a year like this where you see some great development, so we'll see for the rest of the season. Still a handful of games left, but this was a pretty good loss. One last thing to touch on, Emil Heineman for the Laval Rocket. 2 goals tonight. 2 goals. A Habs prospect that was kind of just a toss-in the Toffoli trade is turning out to maybe not be so bad for Laval, so keep an eye on him if you want to. But yeah, other than that, that'll do it for this game reaction edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us hit 5,000 subs. We know you guys can help us out with that. You've been hitting it like crazy. We love all the support. I'm Josh Gosse. We'll catch you in the next one.